I would believe that God designed us in a way that we can appreciate beauty in things in a unique way. And like when we see something that stops us in our tracks, whether it's like standing on the top of a mountain, in the Rocky Mountains and looking out, or if it's an Eames chair, something that someone has man-made and created, there's something about those things that I've never put words to it, but I do think we resonate with that on a deeper level than just like it's visually appealing.
Hello, beautiful, creative people, and welcome to the Keep Creating podcast presented by Soundstripe, the podcast created by creators for creators. Every episode, we seek out successful creatives who dedicate their lives to pursuing a creative trade or career. We ask them some questions and soak in all the truth their stories seep. Also, we can package it up and provide more creatives like you the inspiration, education, and tools to grow in your own unique pursuit to keep creating. I'm Joel Porter, and I'm excited for the opportunity to host this show and dialogue with our guests about what creativity looks like in their lives. So, without any more delay, thanks so much for listening, and let's get started. German industrial designer and academic Dieter Rams had this to say about design. Good design is innovative. Good design must be useful. Good design is aesthetic design. Good design makes a product understandable. Good design is honest. Good design is unobtrusive. Good design is long-lasting. Good design is consistent in every detail. Good design is environmentally friendly. And last but not least, good design is as little design as possible. What I find interesting about Ram's description of good design is that every trait he listed is dependent on the others and takes into account the user of the design, the environment in which the design is living, and the overall purpose of the design. Now, because I'm curious, join me in a thought exercise and replace the word design with the word creativity. Do you think Ram's definition for good design still makes sense when talking about creativity? Do you agree that good creative work is innovative and useful, aesthetically pleasing, understandable, honest, unobtrusive, long-lasting, consistent, environmentally friendly, and minimal? Or does creativity stretch beyond these parameters? I can't say I'm completely sold, but something about this description works for me when I think about good creative work. But I'm interested to know, how do you describe quality creative work? My guest today is the founder and designer of Ugmonk, Jeff Sheldon. Ugmonk is a brand focused on creating and curating thoughtfully designed products. Jeff launched Ugmonk in 2008 as a creative outlet to design products that he wanted to wear and use. Now, over a decade later, Ugmonk continues to expand its collection of well-designed objects and clothing and attracts a passionate following from around the globe. I'm really excited to share Jeff's experience and perspective with you. So instead of rambling on about it, let's jump right into our conversation. All right, today I am here with Jeff Sheldon. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making the time. I know we've kind of gone back and forth for a little while here, and everyone here is really excited to have you on. I am really excited that you are going to be spending this morning with us.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to do this. I haven't been on the podcast circuit for a while, so I think a lot of the stuff that we can talk about is different than just the same old things that people have heard on some of the origin story podcasts that I've been on years ago.
Yeah. Well, to get past that, I'm going to ask the hardest question. How would you describe yourself as a creative?
Yeah, we start off hard. I am a designer by trade and an entrepreneur by accident or by necessity. Design is really what I'm passionate about and where I started and got my feet wet. Mm-hmm. And then the entire entrepreneurial business side came out of the need for figuring things out along the way. We can jump more into my story about how I got there, but I'm also a husband and a dad of two little kids who are 2 and almost 4. So got my hands full.
Definitely. I mean, design, business, and then parenting. And being a husband. I mean, that's a full plate. If you wouldn't mind, just a brief synopsis about how you've gotten to where you are within your company and within the world of responsibility that you operate in.
Yeah, so I design and run a company called Ugmonk. It's Ugmonk. and across all web, social, everything you can find us. We're the only Ugmonk out there that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I started this really as a side project right out of college because I was bored at my day job, which was I had studied design, ready to be super creative. And it was also when the economy was crashing and there wasn't a whole lot of work to go around. And this was 2008. And then started Ugmonk on the side, which was really just a project to keep me busy, keep my creative juices flowing, to design t-shirts that I wanted to wear. And it was really that simple. Like, there was no business plan. There was no like 10-year plan. It was, I want to design t-shirts. I think it'd be cool to print some. I had done some t-shirt contest and won some t-shirt contest stuff, like online t-shirt contest before that. And decided, hey, let's just see if I can do this little side thing. And that's when Ugmonk was born and has now become 11 years later, doing it full time, and has grown to be much more than just a few t-shirts.
So at that time when you were just starting and designing t-shirts for the sake of curing boredom, what were you doing for your day job?
Yeah, so I was working at a design agency, marketing agency, just entry-level designer. Got to do all the boring work that nobody else wanted to do. It was a great learning experience. I was immersed in that. That was really my only real job I've ever had outside of after college, and was able to learn a lot from being in that environment and just be around other super talented designers and learn the ins and outs of it. So it was a great first step, but it was also like this little side project, this designing t-shirts, started to take on a life of its own, and honestly didn't think I was ever going to do it full time.
Yeah.
Even like a year in, people were like, oh, you're going to leave your job. And it was like, I kind of laughed. Like, I'd have to sell a lot of t-shirts to be doing this full time. And well, here we are, and I'm selling a lot of t-shirts and a lot of other designed objects.
So I'm a designer as well. And I have a lot of designer friends, a lot of very creative people who there's always this like love interest with this idea of starting clothing or style brands and companies, particularly revolving around clothing. So you said that you started because you wanted to wear t-shirts that you designed. You designed t-shirts that you wanted to wear. So how did that go from being this pet project to all of a sudden a full-blown career?
I think the hard way to do this is to sum it up in like 30 seconds and hear the whole story compressed, because it does sound like there's like this magic moment where it went from side project and then it took off and we had this Oprah moment where everyone knew about it and it became this super successful. But the reality is it was like a very slow, methodical growth. I never hit it big with anything. I mean, I think I've been featured on design blogs. I've been featured and spoken at conferences and all those things. But it's the consistently showing up and just consistently putting out product and reinvesting that money back into the business. So we started with 4 different shirts, reinvested all that money as those sold out and built to 8, built to 12. Then we started adding other posters and screen prints, and then leather goods. We started doing leather mouse pads, and that eventually led to the biggest product I've ever launched, called Gather, which is a modular desk organizer. But this was all layered onto each other. So over the course of those 10 years, 11 years, it's been slow and steady wins the race is one of the shirts that I designed. And that's really my motto with what I'm doing.
So definitely more so process than just like a flash in the pan moment.
Yeah. And I was overlapping. So I didn't just get up and jump off the cliff of trying to go full time, month one. It was 2 years into it before I left my full time job that Ugmonk was bringing in enough revenue that I thought, like, okay, with my wife working, with me doing this and then picking up freelance gigs on the side, I think I can make it work. It was also pre-kids, no mortgage, nothing. Like, it was a lot easier to do back then.
Yeah.
But I did wait. It was 2 years into it where I built a buffer of some money in the business that I hadn't touched. And then that's really when things started to grow. I wouldn't say take off, but it's when things really picked up, was when I went full time.
Yeah. So bringing it back to creativity, you had mentioned that you wanted to, like, you were bored at your agency job. What was it about designing t-shirts that sparked life or sparked that creative itch and scratched that pulled you to wanting to make something wearable and express yourself creatively that way?
T-shirts were kind of I think they were just the medium that happened to be a way to express my design and a tangible way to express it, that because I was doing these online contests and had seen like a physical shirt printed that I designed, and then I got to wear it, or my friends were buying it and they got to wear it. there was something about that tangible medium that I was really drawn to. I don't think I had like deep thoughts about like, oh, t-shirts are the way that I should, start my design career and I should build a brand around. You did mention like, yeah, every designer has this idea of like a pet project to do some sort of clothing line or fashion line, because I think there's something about a tangible wearable thing where it's a personal object. I mean, you're wearing it, you're carrying it around as part of your identity because you chose to put it on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really resonated with me because it wasn't just living in this digital world where, apps and things like that, which are all great and help us do other things. But for me as an artist, really first was like, I loved the tangible end result of a t-shirt. And it was a really easy way to create that art, create a version of that art that was sellable to other people.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something, especially in this age of technology where it's so easy to create something digital and put it up on a digital platform. It never really gets to a point where it seems totally accessible until it's tangible. So that's cool. After you've started the business and after you've realized, okay, there's some momentum here and it's a slow and steady race, obviously we talked, okay, it's so much more about process. So what kinds of things did you do every single day to foster this new creative project? Like, were there any habits or routines that you started to implement that were like, oh my gosh, this is it? Like, I understand that if I just continue on doing this, that this could potentially go somewhere.
The biggest thing is just showing up every day. I mean, consistency speaks volumes. We're in a world where we're pulled 53 different directions every day and so many opportunities. We can learn any skill because of through the internet and watching YouTube videos. But consistency is really like what I think. It wasn't the same thing every day, but it was consistently showing up and continuing to do what I had started to do and designing new products, building a loyal audience of people that wanted to hear from me. This wasn't like, I'm going to buy Instagram followers and an email list. It was like just continually to do it. And people started to take note. Like it wasn't a habit, like a particular way I structured my day or something like that. But it was more of, I'm going to stick to, I see this vision for what this could be. I see the people that are relating to it, that are asking for more products, that are saying like, I love what you're doing, and just kind of trotting on that path slowly, one foot in front of the other. And the hardest part about that is consistently showing up when things, suck, when business is not going well, when the shirts come in and they're printed wrong, when you have customer service issues of packages not getting to someone in Brazil, and like going through all of these things where like you're trying to run the business, but it's just not as easy as just turning your computer on and sitting down to design. It's like way more than just the design portion of it. So that's what I don't think it's necessarily a habit or something that I've built, but I know that by doing something for a length of time, it has spoken volumes about the products and the level of care we put into things.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you consider yourself an introspective person?
I don't think so because I feel like I'm always looking forward and never looking back. I don't stop and reflect, and I don't really feel in tune with a lot of things that I'm thinking about introspectively. There's probably some of that there subconsciously, but I'm forward thinking. I'm always like on to the next, to a point that can be detrimental where I'm like, okay, I need to stop, smell the roses, be thankful for what we did. We just had a successful launch. We just did something. But I also I love thinking about all of the potential other things and other ideas that I can get out of my head and can see come to life in the future.
So do you think that mindset is, are you trying to reach a certain point or a certain level, or is it just you are super infatuated with possibility?
Yeah, the latter, the possibility, like just thinking about that stuff. It is not an end goal where I'm trying to meet, like, I want to retire by this age. It is like, it's so the opposite, which is why I don't know if I could ever retire because I'm so interested in learning new things and creating new things. Recently, I got into making sourdough bread at home, and sourdough is like a very intense learning process. It's a very simple process, but also there's just like a ton to learn about it and how it works, and
Mm-hmm.
lengthy process. And people were like, why did you get into this? Like, what about this makes you want to make a loaf of bread that takes, days of time? And I've realized that the idea of learning new things and then trying to get really good at something is like this pattern in my life not that I'm ever the best at anything when it comes to, sports or making bread or anything else design. I know I'm not the best out there,
Hmm.
but there's something about that process that I'm really addicted to. And I just jump in with both feet and I'm like laser focused on trying to be almost, I guess, a competitive point. Like I want to be able to make bread as good as, X person or X bakery. And then that process is something that as I look back, it's been a pattern in my life for almost everything.
What other examples of that do you have in your life?
I mean, sports, I grew up playing a lot of sports, and I think that was the fuel. I knew I was never going to make the NBA or play on an international soccer team, but there was something about I saw someone else really good at it that I was like, I got to figure out how are they doing that? Like, why are they able to shoot the ball like that and I'm not? So sports, I'd say photography. I never really was officially trained as a photographer, but it goes really in line with the whole line of Ugmonk and line of work that I do. And I want to present our products in the best light. I want to learn how do I shoot photos and video in a way that tells that story of what we're doing. And yeah, I've gone down deep wormholes and black holes of trying to figure out how to get really good at this stuff and studying other people's work.
So when you are studying, and it sounds like you're very, very self-taught in a lot of these areas.
Hmm.
Is it something where you're studying this to the point of understanding things from a really, really technical sense? Or is it more for you like a feel like I'm just going to get my hands on a camera and I'm going to go and I'm going to shoot and I'm going to basically experiment with this until I can consider myself like proficient at something?
I'd say both. I think it's really a mix of those two things
Okay.
because the technical side of things is important. So if you pick up a camera and you have no idea what aperture and shutter speed and what type of lenses and focal length and all that stuff, like you can only do so much by feel and you're just kind of shooting in the dark.
Hmm.
But then on the flip side, if you only stay there and you're only reading like gear blogs of, oh, if I had this lens, I'd be such a better photographer. If I knew how to, if I had slow mo in my camera, I'd be able to replicate this guy's work. Like that doesn't get you anywhere.
Mm.
So I think it is like this deep dive on learning the basics, or when I hit a wall, like how do I light this product photo, without getting a reflection of me in it or something. I don't know, whatever it is. And then taking that and then going back to the feel side where there's a lot of things I do that I think are based on feel to get that finished result. So technically, I always feel like I'm just faking it till I make it. The very DIY setups on things and not having professional training, professional gear or studio or anything like that. But I want to be able to achieve the result that's just as good as the top, whatever else brand out there.
Yeah. So do you ever seek out mentors when it comes to some of these new pursuits that you undertake within your creative life?
I never thought of them as mentors, but I think, yeah, I mean, I do reach out to people and I've built relationships with so many people that have helped me, whether it is something like photography or if it's something on the e-commerce side or it's something on just operations and manufacturing or maybe even finance. Like there's lots of people with lots of wisdom and really it's just a phone call away, a Skype call away, sitting down and having lunch with them to understand like specific things from specific people versus like one mentor who's like this, the god of everything that can tell you like, here's the next step you need to take in your business. It's very much the opposite where I think I have just learned a lot from listening to other people and reaching out to people who are good at like a specific thing.
Gotcha. So it's when you're looking for advice, you're looking for advice from somebody who's just a total expert at the thing that you're looking for advice from.
Yeah. And I would even say multiple people because we can get pigeonholed into just looking to one person for too much. Like if this is the only way that they say is the best way to do, take the next step in your business or you should raise funding or you should do this, that can be valid advice. But I do try and take everything through the lens of like, okay, I need to filter that through. How does that apply to me? Let's talk to somebody who says, you should never raise money for your business and kind of weigh that stuff out rather than just take whatever, fully blind trust for any one person.
Do you have an example, or would you be willing to share an example of something that's gone terribly wrong in your creative life and how you bounced back from it, or how you solved it, or fixed it, or even just learned from it?
The question that everyone loves to talk about, right? All of our failures and mistakes. And No, I think it's good. And there's not enough people talking about failures and things that haven't worked and why they haven't worked, especially in the creative community, because we are able to curate our lives and our online personas so well. Like, people assume that I'm successful at everything I touch. Like, man, Jeff, everything you touch turns to gold. I'm like, it is so far from that. And there's a level of like, how much of the failure and screw ups do we need to share and be open about? I think we need to be open about those as people, but I don't know that like if a business was 9 out of 10 Instagram posts was about how much they screwed up, I don't think people are going to be that interested in following that. But just a level of transparency. Yeah, so a big learning experience has been this Gather project. As I mentioned before, it is the modular desk organizer. I have one sitting here in front of me on my desk. It was a long, like 4 or 5 year process to get it made. We launched it on Kickstarter. It ended up being the most successful product we've ever launched. Our funding goal was $18,000, and we hit that in like 47 minutes into the campaign.
Wow.
And then we ended up raising $430,000 over the course of the Kickstarter campaign. So from everyone that saw that, it was like, man, Jeff, what are you going to do with all that money? That's amazing. Like, you're just crushing it. And I think my eyes got big too. It's like, wow, like if I can do that in 60 days, I wonder what I can do the rest of the year with this product. And long story short, the back end of it has not been smooth sailing. The product itself has been very successful. People that have them, customers that have them, love them. And, I love getting pictures from people and seeing how they're using them on their desk or other places in their house to organize things. But the manufacturing has been anything but smooth. There was delay after delay after delay. And then we ran into shipping problems. We ran into fulfillment problems. We ran into to the point where we ended up getting a lot of the wood parts. So the base is made out of wood. Actually helps if you can go see what I'm talking about because it's hard to visualize through audio, but it's ugmonk.com/gather and you can see this. But the base is made out of solid wood and a lot of the wood parts had to be replaced, a very large portion of them. And this was 2 shipping containers worth of product, not just like a couple hundred of them. And I went through this process of trying to get things right. And we tried different finishing techniques and we finally figured this out and months go on and I'm updating people, hey, like we're still working on replacing this if the one that you got has issues with it. And then we finally got I've actually never shared this story publicly, so you're the first to hear some of this stuff. We finally got the replacements, got ready to send everything out. And this was, I don't know, maybe 6 to 9 months after the original fulfillment date, shipping date. And we went to go attach the pieces just to test them out. There's magnets in the side where they connect, like modularly snap to each other. And all of the magnets in one of the parts was put in reverse. So it didn't connect. And it was just like your heart just drops into your stomach and you're like, what am I supposed to do now? So that was a low point.
Yeah.
It has not even been smooth sailing since then. And this has been a couple of years ago, I guess now, or yeah, about 2 years ago. We had to remake everything again and I finally have all of that resolved. But it was like, from the back end of seeing what was going on behind the scenes, there was times where I'm like, do I even want to do this anymore? Like, is this worth dealing with? You have thousands of people that have bought the product, that love the product, or that are waiting for replacements. And is it worth pursuing and keep pushing? Because just shipping tangible products is not easy.
Right.
And I think that was like some of the times where I really started to doubt or question what I was doing. Like, should I just go get a day job? Should I just go work at an agency and a 9 to 5 where I don't have to have the weight and the stress of all of this?
Yeah.
But we've recovered from that. I think we've moved on and we are back on our feet. There's obviously more to that story. I think I could write an entire book on just the Gather experience.
So I am interested in that moment where you were, pretty much rock bottom in this Gather project and you were asking those questions. What did like the month and a half, 2 months after look like? Like what types of conversations were you having with yourself or what were the things that kept you going during those times?
I want to say, I don't remember vividly. Again, I'm not super introspective. I probably blocked out some of that. I think the main things were just trying to, and people, friends around me and other people just encouraging me to remember all of the successful things and all of the things that people have believed in me for the products that they have and they love. Like to them, really no one was seeing this happen other than the people that were, maybe waiting for the new parts to get shipped out. But there's so many successes that we've had without having a lot of lows. Like the roller coaster had been pretty high for a long time.
Mhm.
That's not to say we didn't have any problems or struggles, but it had been riding so high for so long that when I stop and think about it, like, yes, this was a huge blow and this cost us a ton of money. It cost us almost an entire year of time suck of just trying to, how do we figure a way out of this? How do we make this right? And all of those things. But if I could, when I step back and thankfully have friends to remind me to do that and to look at how amazing everything has gone, it's pretty remarkable. And that's really what got my head on like, okay, like this is, got my head on straight. This is working. There's more to this. I have an audience of thousands of people around the world that they want more products. They want me to design more things and more ideas and more, just to see more of my vision come to life. So knowing that was like, okay, I got to remember that this isn't like the end. This is just a giant, speed bump in the road.
Right. So I'm just kind of perusing your site. I have many times since first being introduced to you, but I'm really, really taken back by all of the simplicity in your design, but it's so original. Like, what is it that you are inspired by? And like, what is it that you are thinking about within your creative and design process that brings these types of, or like you just said, your vision to life in the forms of these products?
I would say, minimalism as an aesthetic is something it's a bit overused, right? Because everybody wants simple and clean. And, Apple pioneered this way where we expect that. But minimalism in a way, I think of it more as like a timelessness and a simplicity that's timeless.
Mm-hmm.
And in that meaning, like if I'm going to design something and I'm going to launch it, I don't want it to be just cool for 6 months and then feel like, oh yeah, that was definitely made in 2015.
Right.
There's something about when you strip something down to its core and it's purely functional and it's beautiful and it can look great in a year, 5 years, 10 years, hopefully 50 years, that drives a lot of what I'm doing. And I would derive a lot of this from designers like Dieter Rams, whose products he's done a lot of the work for Braun, and a lot of his products still look like they could have been designed like today. And they're phenomenally designed and timeless and functional that like I am nowhere on his level. So I'm not comparing myself to him at all. But the inspiration that I draw from like, how do I put my touch or my vision on the products that we're making is through that same lens of like, I want this to feel worth investing in.
Hey friends, it's time to give a quick shout out to our artist of the week, King Pong, for writing the song Same Energy, which is the featured track for today's episode. I'm always taken back by the music our artists create every day. Seriously, take a second and listen to a little more of this song. So good, right? Well, the good news is you can license Same Energy and a bunch of other songs for your creative projects by simply heading to soundstripe.com/keepcreating. There you'll find a custom playlist of all the songs we use on the show. And if you like that playlist, make sure to check out some of the other curated playlists featured on our app. I'm positive you'll find something you love. All right, that's all I've got. Let's hear more from Jeff.
Do you have any other designers or people that you've looked up to regarding their work? People who you're just like, man, this is like the epitome. This is the top. This is who I'm striving to be like.
Not too many to name specific names. I mean, there's people on the industrial design side like Dieter Rams or even James Dyson that we know for the Dyson vacuum cleaner and things like that, where aesthetically it might not be what I'm interested in, but like the iterative process, and his biography is really interesting. Hearing about the same way of like solving problems and figuring out better ways and going against the grain to show that this can be done and this is a way to do it in an elegant way. To even down to like you think about the hand dryers that we see everywhere. I mean, the Dyson hand dryers have become ubiquitous, and there's something really inspiring about the way that he approaches things. There's plenty of visual designers, thinking more in the graphic design realm, of the Paul Rand, the Saul Bass, all of the guys that did logos that we still see today, 50 years or 50, 60, 70 years later. that is inspiring as well. And I've always been drawn to that. I think Ray and Charles Eames, the Eames furniture that we look at, like there's something about that like, man, that really strikes a chord with me more than just something that's really trendy and really in. And I strive to be, an ounce of that in what I do.
Right. Is there anything in particular, like when you do see something like that? So my wife and I just bought an Eames chair. And what is it about these types of timeless pieces do you notice like stops you in your tracks? And then how do you then like try to take that and bring it into your own creative vision?
If it was that easy, I think if it was easy to sum up, I think we would all be amazing designers. I don't know. I want to say there is a certain feel, and feel is a very gut level thing. That's a human thing in our DNA. That robots and AI and all that stuff may not pick an Eames chair out of a lineup if it was like, hey, describe the most beautiful chair, or the most appealing chair.
Mm-hmm.
But I would believe that God designed us in a way that we can appreciate beauty in things in a unique way. And like when we see something that stops us in our tracks, whether it's like standing on top of a mountain, in the Rocky Mountains and looking out, or if it's an Eames chair, something that someone has man-made and created, there's something about those things that I've never put words to it, but I do think we resonate with that on a deeper level than just like it's visually appealing.
Yeah.
I don't know how I implemented that in my work directly. I think it's more of an intangible, subconscious thing.
Yeah.
Where the end product might have some of that in it. Like I hope it has, like that's the goal when somebody says like, wow, I never thought a desk organizer could be beautiful. Like in my mind, I'm like, how do I make something that somebody's proud to have on their desk, proud to display, rather than like, the stuff that you pick up at Staples or Office Max. You're like, I really don't want anyone seeing all of my pens in this thing. So I would say it's more of a subconscious thing, just not necessarily like there's one trait in all of those things. But music is the same way, right? Like It resonates. You hear a song, why does it make us feel a certain way? Like you can't really put words to that. I think it's a deeper sense of us just being human.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that like this subconscious feeling or this gut level feeling, I think some people would describe it as taste.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's something that can be developed? Or do you think it's just something that is innately like an emotion?
I think, taste is probably the best word to describe, what we're talking about in a broad level. I do believe that taste can be taught. You can be acclimated and introduced to things the same way. Like when I got into coffee several years ago, like I didn't drink coffee my entire life. The times I had tried it was like the, gas station coffee. And it had no appeal to me. It was like, I don't get it. But as I was introduced to like third wave craft coffee, like light roast, really amazing flavor profiles and all these things, I wasn't immediately like, this is the best thing I've ever had, but it started to open my palate, like tangibly, physically, of like, wow, I've never tasted something like that. Or I didn't know coffee could taste like that. So to apply that analogy to everything else, I think introducing people and exposing people to certain things and really educating them on, why do we think that like Apple is the pinnacle of design in technology, or some of the stuff that Johnny Ive has done, or Dieter Rams back in the day, like what is about that? And I think there's a level of education that you can show people that some people have never stopped to think about. And then there is a side that is just innate, and some people just have good taste, or have a certain level of refined taste in them and the way they see the world that just comes more naturally.
So you had mentioned before that you think it can be taught. There's a level. Information, or don't even want to call it information, but there's a level of taste that can be taught and described. And hopefully, you can subject people to it. So what types of things do you input to help maintain or increase the level of creativity that or like, I guess, increase the level of quality in the stuff that you produce? It's a very roundabout way of saying that.
Yeah. It's a mixture of things. So when people ask me on like a written interview, what's your biggest inspiration, or what's one place you always go to be inspired? I'm like, I don't really have that. It's not like I can go to this certain trail in this certain place and I sit down and inspiration just like strikes me like, lightning strike.
Yeah.
Or a certain book that I always go back to. And this is the book that I go to. for me, inspiration is a continual process of just seeing everything and anything around me and like intaking that. Some things, I'll remember a certain way. It could be a sight, it could be a smell, it could be a taste, and kind of like bringing all of that stuff together. So if I'm traveling and I'm walking down, a street that I've never walked down in some city, I never, again, like I didn't actually realize I did this because even as a kid, I did this too. I'm just constantly like observing details, and I'm always looking at things. And, on road trips, I used to just stare out the window and like just see all these unique things, whether it was like the font on a billboard. I didn't even know what a font was, but like, or the way that a certain car was designed, and taking in all of these details constantly like feeds your inspiration more broadly versus like I go to this one source or like I put on this one song and I'm always inspired. There are practical resources. I think even things that we think are detrimental to inspiration, like Instagram or scrolling, some inspiration site online. I think that that's good. It all has its place. Like it can actually spark things that wouldn't otherwise be sparked if you were just literally like hiking on a trail. But it's a blend of bringing all of those things together through audio, through reading things, through watching things, and studying design 100 years ago, studying art 1,000 years ago, and then really bringing all those things together and letting it morph into its own thing.
Yeah, like marinate in one place, and then
yeah, like you put it all together, and you're never done being inspired. It's not like you go, I need 30 minutes to go get inspired. Okay, cool. I filled up my inspiration tank, and now I'm going to go apply that. It's like it's a very malleable, like ongoing, progressive thing.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I feel like it's important that you said that, actually. I think that there is this stigma within creative professions or creative fields or just creatives in general where there's this sense of arrival that everybody is trying to achieve. We're trying to get to this one place and then we'll be this or XYZ, and to just allow yourself to be open and continuously inspired and almost as if you're just a student always taking in and being aware of your surroundings and how things are made and how things are done. And then when you're working, like subconsciously drawing from the fact that you were just present in the moment. I think that's an important lesson for creatives.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about inspiration as a thing, it's almost we're asking the wrong question. Like people are always like, I need your top resources for inspiration. Inspiration isn't a thing, it's everything. And it's the filters and the ways that we combine things into our own minds. Again, going back to the artists and the creative brains that we have, like we're able to do things that isn't just a math equation for when it comes to creativity and design. Sure, we can pull things from things we've seen. Maybe we saw a website that influenced us. Maybe we saw an image or a photo that we like resonated with. But we can pull things from all of those different aspects and create something new from them.
How do you deal with things like, the critical voice in your head or the voice of criticism or self-doubt or anything like that when it comes to your work and in your creative profession?
How are you inside my head right now to even ask that question? Man, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. I want to say it's almost universal among all creatives. Like the more people you talk to, if people you can be honest with themselves, what I referenced earlier, just faking it till we make it. Like none of us really know exactly what we're doing every step of the way. Like we have experience. So if you've been a photographer for 20 years, you certainly have more experience and you've learned things and just life experience of how to do things technically or just run a business of it, any of that. But I think there's a point where we all doubt what we do when something doesn't get as much attention as we thought it would. Something doesn't turn out like we thought it would. Like, that vision in my head looked great until it actually came to fruition. And now it doesn't seem quite as solidified. Or I tried to explain this idea to somebody out loud and man, that didn't sound anything like the script that was in my head. I would say we all wrestle with it. I can't speak for everyone because maybe there's people that are just kind of plodding along and they're really confident in their work. But I think it's okay to have that self-doubt and to know that it's okay to be like that we are all works in progress when it comes to being creatives and designers, and we're never going to have it figured out. I think you mentioned that earlier. We're never going to have felt like we've fully arrived. And that's like the best part about it to me, because that goes back to the learning and like the constant improving of our processes and our skills. So when I look back at something, I might have been proud about it at the moment, or I should have, have been confident enough to share it. But there's always something we can optimize, we can make it better, and we can continue to improve as creatives.
I love that you brought it back to imposter syndrome and then instantly said, yeah, but we're all just faking it till we're making it. So basically, we just got to be comfortable being imposters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can add that to my list of job title or, my business card: creative, designer, founder, imposter. Yeah, I think it's more just like, hey, let's be honest with each other. I would say that applies outside of the creative industry as well.
Yeah.
I've talked to successful, businessmen and women that have built things that nobody knows everything perfectly.
Right.
And that's why podcasts like How I Built This, I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but it's just, I think it's inspiring, not because I want to make the next Fortune 500 company, but because you hear like the way that these people got their starts, and like, man, they had no clue what they were doing most of the time, but they had a vision and they had a purpose and they saw something that other people didn't see at the time. And I love hearing those stories because I think it's really encouraging that, to someone like myself or other entrepreneurs and designers that are be like, okay, we don't have to have everything figured out to get started.
Right. Yeah, that's super important. What do you think the biggest challenges are for creatives today?
Well, there's a lot of opportunity. So I think it can be paralyzing, the amount of opportunity that we have, even compared to 10 years ago. Even when I was starting Ugmonk and when I graduated college, social media wasn't even barely around. We weren't as exposed to so many things so fast. So I think creatives now, it's like, man, I could do 27 different things, and they spread themselves too thin, or they don't find a particular niche where they're trying to focus in on. And not that you have to only do one thing. I'm not a jack of all trades, master of none. I don't think that's really true. There's some truth to that, but I don't think that's true. I think we can do multiple things and can wear different hats throughout the day. But creatives now, it's like the barrier of entry is so low and the tools are all there. You can get an online, an e-commerce store up within a day. You don't have to know how to code. You don't have to know, you can get shirts made on demand, printed, sent to you within a week. It's like, that's not the hard part, but that almost is paralyzing because you're like, man, I could do all of these different things. Where do I want to start? Especially for creatives that are early in their career, it can be a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, definitely. So what is like, if you could go back to the beginning of your career, or even just like hop in a time machine and open the door to your house and there's the young creative you, what advice would you give that creative you, that younger self?
I would think there's something about being true to your vision and what you believe that is really important, that can be swayed by other people and other people's ideas. So I would say, like, yes, stick to this idea, Jeff. Like, what you're doing, it's never going to turn into this, $500 million brand and globally distributed, like, known thing. But stay true to what you're doing because you believe so strongly in it. And like you can see something else that other people can't see. And it's okay to not know where you're going exactly, like to not have that 5 and 10 and 20-year plan. And thankfully, like I stayed the course. It wasn't all easy. And I don't know, I could probably make a lot more money getting a job as a designer somewhere. But I think just knowing that it's okay to do things different and to pioneer my own path and to not have to worry about the right way and following in other people's footsteps.
Yeah.
Or do I need to graduate school and build a design agency? Because that's like the typical, or work at an agency, then build my own agency and then, hire 50 people and then I'm successful. Just telling myself, like, it's okay that doing this podcast right now from my home office, which is a bedroom in my house, that's fine. Like, I don't have anything to show off as a 20-story, high-rise design office or anything like that.
Right.
But knowing that it's okay to do what you feel led to do.
Do you think that applies to, since I want to try to get into like both of your professions here. So as creatives, does that same advice apply to entrepreneurs?
I think so. I'm not saying every idea that you have is necessarily a good idea. Like, you have this idea that's going to change the world. You need to stick to it no matter what people say. There's wisdom in taking advice from people. And, maybe you're not going to make the first build the first city on Mars for humans or whatever it is. Like there's something about reality and then being okay with laying down ideas and changing paths and allowing those forks in the road to happen. When you believe in a business idea so strongly, personally, not because you see dollar signs and you see the buyout and you see how quickly you can flip something, you operate in a different mentality than, hey, like I'm going to get a bunch of people together that are really smart. We're going to raise a bunch of money. Let's see how quickly we can do this. Let's flip that and then we'll build something else. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Well, there might be things wrong with that, but there's nothing wrong if you want to go that path. But the idea itself, so many times people are looking for after the fact.
Yeah.
It's not something that they actually are passionate about or believe in. Like they don't really want to build a business around something. And on the flip side, for people that are building businesses of stuff that they care about, or there's a cause behind it, the end consumer can feel and sense that. Like you can tell when there's been a level of care put into products versus just stuff that's cranked out without that same level of care.
What's like your definition of passion? How do you identify passion and how do you see it in your life?
Passion is something that you can't stop thinking about no matter, if you're at your day job or you're sleeping and you're woken up and you still are thinking about it. Passion is not necessarily business and doesn't necessarily have to be a business. So we're in a world now where you're like, hey, make your passion into a business. You love baking bread, you should start a bakery. You love, design, you should be a full-time designer. That advice is not great either because you can actually ruin the thing that you love and you're passionate about. It's okay to be passionate about things and to, be super into coffee and brewing coffee and not ever open a coffee shop. But there's something about it. It's like, if you're into that, you're automatically gravitated towards those things. Like you can't help yourself from like reading books on it or listening to a podcast or like when you're talking to friends. I would say passion, it comes out when you're talking to friends, your passion. So it could be video games, it could be whatever, but like you can't help but talk about it.
So then what's your definition of creativity?
I'm going to have to look that up in the dictionary, I think. I don't know if I have my own definition of it other than just the open-endedness to everything. Creativity means there isn't a single version of something that is considered the right thing. Like creativity is an approach to life, is approach to running a business the same way that we'd approach to designing a website or designing a band poster. Like creativity is the freedom of kind of taking whichever path you want in all of those things.
I love that. So just so you know, and I actually just learned this listening back to one of our podcasts. I totally glossed over it when we released it. We had a creative coach on the podcast, episode 3, I believe, Jillian Farabee. She's great. She was a part of Cirque du Soleil. She has an incredible innovation agency called Kite Parade up in Montreal. But she defined creativity, I believe this is the actual definition, as bringing something that is totally abstract and manifesting it so that it's tangible.
That's better than my definition. We'll go with
I like
that.
yours, though. I like yours. Dude, you just pulled that out of thin air. That was great. Okay, well, Jeff, I first of all want to thank you again for being on the podcast. We're not quite done. We've got a couple more questions. But before we get to those, love the way you think. I would love it if everybody listening would dive into the type of work or any resources that you have, anything that you share online. Is there anywhere that you'd like to direct our listeners to keep up with you and to maybe follow you along and continue this conversation?
Yeah, my email list is the best way to stay in touch with everything. I mean, so social media, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, both Ugmonk, Ugmonk, which I'm pretty active on. But my email list is where like you get the good stuff. You're going to get things that are inspiring me, where every month I send out a list of 5 things that I'm digging. So you're getting a little insight into the process. I share behind the scenes of how I'm making products, how I'm designing things, how I'm running the business. And then you're the first to know about when new things drop. So my email list is just ugmonk.com/newsletter. And you can sign up there. And that's really the best way to stay in touch.
Make sure you go do that. I actually do follow it and it is great. Me and some of my coworkers here have conversations about it all the time. It definitely is thought-provoking. So make sure to follow that newsletter. Okay, I've got 2 questions here. These are a little bit more fun. The first being, what is a skill that you wish you were extremely proficient at and why?
Being a dad, does that count? Being a parent is really hard. It's not a skill-based thing, but man, has it like put things in perspective. It makes running a business and all of the hard parts of running a business seem like the easiest thing in the world. And maybe that's just my experience, but this is another thing where I feel like a lot of people are not fully transparent about how hard it is to be a parent, having a 2 and almost 4-year-old. It is challenging in so many ways and has exposed me and, areas I need to grow and just learning. Like you feel like an imposter. You're just like, I don't know. How are you guys doing it? And they're like, I don't know. How are you guys doing it? So if I could be proficient in that and just be an amazing dad, that would be awesome.
What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned about being a father or from being a father?
If I'm completely honest, how selfish I am. It's like if you get a dog or you get a puppy, you realize like, man, I'm pretty selfish. I have to like actually get up and let the dog out and do these things. If you have a kid, it's like 100 times that, where you're just realizing how many times you want to serve yourself and not serve them, but they are helpless, right? Like as a baby, they literally can't do anything. And as kids, you have the responsibility and the opportunity to teach them things. And someone who's so passionate about their work like myself, and I love what I do and I love thinking about it and I can't turn it off. Kids has made me, forced breaks, which is healthy and which is good. And I've learned like, okay, I need to be more proficient with my time and just to be looking outside of myself.
That's great. All right. Last question that I have for you is, what is a question you wish I would have asked you?
Is my desk always as clean as it is in my Instagram photos? And the answer to that would be no, as I'm looking at it right now with product samples and all sorts of crap all over it. Posting a messy desk photo on Instagram is not going to do as well or not going to be that interesting. There's an ebb and a flow to creative work, and I think it's okay to be messy in the process. And then it's also nice to be orderly and neat, but I am not a neat freak. And although my desk has become a little bit more famous than I have throughout the internets. So it's been kind of funny to hear or see all the places where the photos of my desk pop up.
Well, you heard it here. You can have a messy desk from the guy who makes a desk organizer.
Exactly.
Well, Jeff, thanks again. Is there anything that you're working on right now or that we should be looking for in the future? Any new projects or things that we should keep our eyes out for?
I'm going to keep this pretty vague because I can't share all of the details, but there is a big product launch that I have coming up in the next month or two, knowing that things always take longer than planned. That is potentially the most impactful product that I've launched. It is a very simple product. It is a tangible product, and it helps people to focus and get work done. So I'm going to leave it at that, but sign up on a newsletter if you want to get some more sneak peeks of what I'm referring to.
Oh, that makes me really excited. Now I got to know. Can't wait to see it. Jeff, thanks again so much for your time and for being so open and vulnerable with your story and your insight. It's been an absolute joy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. I really want to be an open book. So if people want to reach out on Twitter, email, or wherever, feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a good rest of the morning and good luck with everything Ugmonk related. And I think that's all we got today.
Cool. Sounds good.
I want to thank Jeff again for being on the show, and I hope he's encouraged you to find joy in whatever process you're focusing on and to embrace everything that comes with it. Make sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss future episodes, and help us build a healthy and collaborative community of creators by sharing this with someone who could use some words of inspiration today. And lastly, I want to thank our team here at Soundstripe for making the show possible. If you don't know who we are, Soundstripe is a subscription-based music licensing company that provides unlimited music to subscribers for all video and creative needs. If you need music for your podcast, YouTube channel, vlog, radio show, film, anything, go to soundstripe.com to learn more about our amazing library of music and sound effects. We also create and curate a ton of inspirational and educational material that's featured on our blog and on our social channels. With everything we do, our mission is to keep creatives creating. So once again, thank you all for joining us this week. Hope you come back next time. And remember, no matter what, keep creating.